Good day, everyone. I am Jialin Idul, together with my group mates Christian J. Inut and Jason Berlasa. Today, we are going to tackle utilitarianism, and here are the outcomes as follows. Demonstrate a clear understanding of utilitarianism foundational principles, focusing on the outcomes, happiness promotion, and harm reduction. Second is to apply utilitarian concept in the real world scenarios. Following are the contents of this topic, the introduction, methods, result, followed by discussion, and then the references.
So we have here the introduction about utilitarianism. Utilitarianism is a normative ethical theory developed by Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. It posits that actions are morally right if they contribute to overall happiness or pleasure and wrong if they lead to unhappiness or pain. It also judges action based on their outcomes, seeking to maximize the net balance of pleasure over the pain in the world. While classical utilitarianism focuses on pleasure, it includes also the intrinsic goods like beauty and also friendship. In word utilitarianism, it is differ from egoism by prioritizing the greater good over individual self-interest and diverge from theories. It also ties moralities to an agent motive, allowing morally right actions and stem from less than ideal motives. It also emphasizes evaluating action based on outcomes, separating the assessment of praise or blame from the determination of moral correctness. The history of utilitarianism reveals its focuses on maximizing overall happiness but faces also face yapon og criticism from sa mga challenges ang utilitarianism. It also potential unfair treatment of minority interest. And one of the challenges also is a neglect of individual rights. So according to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, utilitarianism assesses that morality of action based on their overall results. Like what I said earlier, aiming to maximize good for the most people. But also, the utilitarianism faces criticism arise due to difficulties in measuring happiness, potential unfairness, neglect to individual rights. The term utilitarianism also extend beyond actions, also evaluating rules, policies, motives, virtues, and social institution. Despite its clinical sound, it can be misconstrued as joyless and selfish in everyday language.
The methods of this topic are as follows. First, explore websites and articles on the internet that interpret utilitarianism. Second, utilize online platforms like Britannica.com, Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, etc. for detailed articles on utilitarianism. By employing this method, the researcher endeavored to identify key texts, scholarly articles, and philosophical discussions that contribute to a nuanced comprehension of utilitarianism. For the results, utilitarianism as a consequentialist ethical theory centers on the idea that actions should be judged based on their outcomes, specifically in terms of maximizing overall well-being and minimizing suffering. According to Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, the founder of utilitarianism, this emphasizes the promotion of happiness for the greatest number of individuals. Historically, utilitarianism has played a significant role in advocating for various social reforms, including animal rights, improved conditions for prisoners and the poor, women's suffrage, and the LGBTQ plus rights. The core insights of remains focus on morally appropriate behavior leading to increased happiness without causing harm to others. Moreover, utilitarianism, with its emphasis on consequentialism, welfarism, impartiality, and aggregationism, provides a framework for evaluating the moral correctness of actions, rules, and policies. However, over time, detractors argue that utilitarianism can lead to counterintuitive claims and conclusions. Objective Objections include concerns about emotional detachment, excessive demands of individuals, neglect of equality and distributive justice, treating individuals as mere means to an end, potential infringement of rights, disregard for the separateness of persons, and a lack of recognition for special obligations to friends and family. In addition, utilitarianism comes in various forms, such as act and rule utilitarianism. Act utilitarianism focuses on the consequences of individual actions, while rule utilitarianism considers the consequences of adhering to specific moral rules. In practical terms, utilitarianism can be applied to real-life scenarios. So later on, Miss Jelin will give some example scenario to better understand what is utilitarianism.
After thorough research and reading, the reporter was able to come up with the following discussion based on the result. Utilitarianism is an ethical theory that focuses on the outcomes to determine what is wrong or what is right. It supports action that promotes happiness or pleasure while condemning actions that cause unhappiness or harm. Utilitarianism's main principle revolve around promoting happiness and minimizing unhappiness or pain for everyone who is affected by the action. Furthermore, utilitarianism was associated with two British philosophers, economists, and political thinkers, Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. A key features of utilitarianism has always been its focus on practical action. Jeremy Bentham was one person who highlighted this in his writing. He advocated for the rights of animals when there were no laws protecting animals from cruelty. He advocated for improving the conditions of prisoners and the poor. Utilitarians advocated for broadening suffrage to include women. So they advocated for women's rights. More generally, Bentham advocated for homosexual rights. In this and many other areas, utilitarians supported policy that are today part of common sense. So other important contributors to utilitarianism include John Stuart Mill, Henry Sigurd, Richard M. Hare, and Peter Singer. The theory's central insight is that morally appropriate behavior will increase our utility while not harming others. The theory has evolved over time, and it is frequently associated with consequentialism, which judges the morality of an action based on its consequences. Furthermore, utilitarianism is the belief that one should strive to enhance overall well-being, welfare, or utility. This philosophy motives, virtues, social institution, and similar elements based on their capacity to bring about the greatness benefit for the greatest number of individuals. So according to McCaskill et al. 2022, that all utilitarian theories share four defining characteristics. First is consequentialism, the value that one ought to act in a way that promotes good outcome. Second is welfarism. It is the view that only the welfare or well-being of individuals determine the value of an outcome. Third is impartiality. It is the view that identify of individual is irrelevant to the moral value of an outcome. So the interests of all individuals hold equal moral weight. And fourth is aggregationalism. It is the view that the value of the world is the sum of the value of its port. So the ports are the experiences, lives, society, and so on. So any theory that denies any of the elements I mentioned is not utilitarian. So for example, a non-conceptualist might hold that the action can be inherently right or wrong regardless of the outcome they produce. So here are the cons of utilitarianism. So there are many objections to utilitarianism. So most of these are based on the idea that the utilitarianism often leads to counterintuitive claims of and conclusion about action. That's according to Macaskill 2022. So the following are the list of incomplete but covers the most common objection raised against utilitarianism. First is alienation objection. It critics argue the utilitarianism is emotionally distant and impersonal, disconnecting individuals from a specific people and project that holds genuine importance to them. Second is demandingness objection. So this objection contends that utilitarianism is excessively demanding, are requiring individuals to make sacrifices that go beyond reasonable expectation of self-sacrifice rather. Third is equality objection. It critics claim that utilitarianism overlooks or underview the principle of equality and distributive justice. Next is mere means objection. So this objection is the popular among Catanian followers. It asserts the utilitarianism threats individuals slowly as a means to achieve the greater good, neglecting their intrinsic value, followed by a rights objection. So this objection rejects or argue that utilitarianism may be too permissive, potentially justifying the infringement of individual rights in the pursuit of maximizing overall well-being. Next is separateness of persons objection. So it critics argue that utilitarianism disregards the distinct boundaries between individuals and its quest to maximize overall well-being. Special obligation objection. So this objection maintains that utilitarianism is excessively impartial and fails to recognize the special obligation in individuals have towards their friends or family members. Utilitarianism has several variants, including act and role utilitarianism. Act and role utilitarianism considers the consequences of individual action, wherein role utilitarianism considers the consequences of following specific moral rules. So here are some of the examples to help better understand this idea. For example, distribution of money from the wealthy to the poor. So this action promotes happiness and minimizes pain by providing resources to those in need, potentially improving their quality of life. So to add to that example, in a business context, utilitarianism could be applied to decision that affects employee, customers, and a wider community. For example, a company could choose to invest on environmental friendly practices that benefit the community and reduce the harm to the environment. So even if it may be more expensive in a short term, This decision would promote happiness and minimize the harm in the long run, so potentially benefiting the company and the wider community. So here are the references of the topic. So thank you everyone for listening and hope you guys learned something from us in this topic, utilitarianism.